for many years there has been a difference in status, I would say a perception of difference in status between the children's guardian and the social worker, which has, in my view, led to a lack of confidence in the social worker. And probably a spin-off from that is that there's been an increase in looking to experts for reports that perhaps social workers could competently do. And that will vary with areas, but I think it's time that that changed, and I think the evidence-based tools that are around now and the increased emphasis on training and supporting social workers in using evidence-based approaches will help with that.
I'm the liaison person with our local CAFCAS team, and I did a presentation for them about the Change project. They were very interested, and they had the same hesitation as social workers and our legal department about actually using research. And they gave me some examples when they had used it, but it was very limited. But what I have noticed since is that most of our guardians now do refer to research in their reports.
The guardian has to be independent in the role, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be working together with social workers to consider best practice issues. And an example of that has actually sprung from the Research in Practice Change project that we were involved with, using research evidence in care proceedings, is an ongoing relationship between Cumbria Local Authority and CAFCAS in Cumbria, and they are now having regular workshops looking at evidence-based practice, and I think they've had a workshop on neglect and a workshop on risk issues so far. So that's a way really of helping to raise the confidence, I think, and share good practice principles and break down some of these divisions. And hopefully the spin-off of that from that will be that the judiciary will start to see that actually we all sing from the same hymn sheet.
I mean, I can say that in this area we are very keen to try and develop an understanding between all those who are involved in family work, so that we do work together, we do understand each other's problems. And for example, we had a Family Justice Council meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it became absolutely clear that everybody working in Northamptonshire hadn't really got an idea of what services were available in different parts of the county. There was no single document you could look at and say, well, in Northampton we can provide this, in Corby we can provide something else. So we're working on that, and I think it's practical things like that which can play a significant part in helping everybody to know where to access the right services and the right help.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Today is meant to give social workers the opportunity to experience as near a real court setting as you can get without actually being in court, where they can challenge themselves and be challenged on the work that they've produced for today.
If I could just take a moment to introduce the parties. My name's Lee Maitland and I'm representing the local authority today. Behind me sits the social worker Claire Jackson.
And if they get it wrong, nothing horrible is going to happen. They're going to learn, so they don't have that huge responsibility that a child may suffer because they didn't do well. So this is a learning experience for them, and it's allowed them to take some risks and to get feedback and to learn, to find areas for development in the future.
Could you confirm to the court that the contents of your statement are true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes. This training I've come on as a result of now being in the Looked After Children team. I think the current framework for social work education doesn't prepare social workers for the court process. It doesn't give social workers a view of what it's going to be like to present a case in court. There are lots of different things you have to consider that you face when you actually go into court, which prior to going into court you don't realise is there. You actually find that you are the person who is presenting this family as being inappropriate to care for their children. You are the person who is stating that the child should be removed. it might be the local authority that is backing you. You might be doing it on behalf of the local authority, but it's you that is sat in the witness box, and it's you that is giving that evidence.
I understand, Miss Underwood, that it's the local authority's position that it's better to separate a 9-month-old baby from a mother who may have alcohol and social difficulties than for that 9-month-old to be brought up within the family. Is that right?
That's something that we need to establish at the moment. We're not entirely sure what. Using research certainly gives you more credibility as a professional. It also gives you much more clout when you're arguing something, even if you consider talking to somebody out of a work setting and you're asked a question and your opinion is challenged. If you don't have something concrete to back that opinion up, then all it becomes is words that don't mean anything to anybody else.
We use research to inform our practice all the time. Whenever you go and assess a family, you're looking at attachment theory, or you're looking at how well the babies are, performed in attachment with mum, or, if you know that domestic violence is present, then you'll know that there's, a high link with child abuse, and if domestic violence is there, you should be checking for child abuse and vice versa, and the impact that it can have on the child, and you'll be looking for symptoms of that. And it really helps in assessment. So absolutely, evidence does and research does inform our practice.
Would you stand for a minute, please, and repeat after me to the magistrate? I do solemnly, sincerely, and truly, declare and affirm.
I used David Howe attachment theory because of mum and little 9-month-old baby Marie.
The whole truth.
I also drew on some of the domestic violence research. In particular, there's a recent book by Catherine Humphreys and Nikki Stanley, and they talk about the impact domestic violence has on children in terms of internalised behaviours and externalised behaviours and what to look for.
You don't suggest that the police officer was wrong on that occasion, do you?
I also looked at the effects of substance misuse, parents with substance misuse, and the impact it can have on children. Some of that was included within the Humphreys and Stanley book because there's a link between domestic violence and substance misuse. But there was also some of the research and practice little pamphlets that we have. There's one on neglect that was written in 2005, and I definitely included that in my initial statement. That was quite useful. In fact, they are quite useful because we've got quite a few of those at work that we just thumb through, and because they're not whole text, they're just sort of succinct. You can, a lot more accessible, aren't they, than your average big textbook.
Mary Green observed to be drunk during a telephone conversation with Children and Young People's Directorate. What time of day was that? I
think I coped with the courtroom situation better than I'd anticipated. I think we all dreaded that. We all feared that we would just get up there and have a complete mental block. I don't know how well I did because it was a bit of a blur and I haven't had my feedback yet. But just in my own personal opinion, I actually feel like it went okay, and I think actually it's quite reassuring because actually perhaps, as a lot of us are newly qualified, there's a lot of theory up there anyway, there's a lot of theory that's at the forefront of our minds, and actually I think we know more sometimes than we give ourselves credit for, and it's quite nice to think, actually, no, I am a professional, I do know, some of the stuff that's being asked of me and some of the resources to draw upon.
The challenges ahead, I think, are going to be finding the right opportunities to engage with the judiciary outside a court hearing. I think the challenges ahead will be helping our staff to appropriately use research. It's not really a lot of use quoting a piece of research if it only supports one side of an argument. Staff have got to have the tools and the support, and that takes time.
Of course it would be better were there to be better backup, better training, better resources. Crucially, I think, support. I would say support on the casework basis that would say, how have you reached these decisions? What's the basis for that? Take me through that. I think those simple questions seem not to be asked. And that, I think, is an easy start. I think that the rest may follow, but it could only follow in real life terms if there were the resources there to help people do it. That if there are not the people on the ground to cover those emergency cases, when people are covering constantly their backs, they can't be looking at best practice all the time. And I think I'm conscious of the realities of the world that we have. But yes, in accounts of perfection would be, but I think that is best done, but perhaps it should be done as part of the training. But on the ground, when they're doing the work, I do think that support and supervision are the things that I think are possibly the easiest way of starting the process.